Welcome to the second part of our special episode about emotionally based school avoidance. We're going to hear about strategies that parents might adopt, as well as eavesdropping on some really useful advice. Let's get into the conversation. Managing parental anxiety. Anxiety works both ways. For parents, there are some practical steps that can be taken that will help. Here we get to listen to what they are. During this kind of process for a parent or a carer, if they are really struggling to get their child to attend school and to attend school happily, obviously anxiety goes both ways. So the parent could become very heightened, very anxious, lots of cortisol sloshing around. How can you diffuse that with your child in a sort of calm way? Leanne, maybe one for you?
I think it's really challenging, really challenging. I think I always have a sort of 3-step process that I think of with parents really. But I think the first stage is definitely to be more aware of yourself. So what are the kind of things that you're going to find quite upsetting or quite triggering? Which parts of the week might be quite tricky for you? So Monday mornings might be quite tricky, for example. Fridays at the end of the week when your child is falling out as well. So I think it's thinking which parts of the week are very, very tricky, and then what can you predict and what can you plan for, and how can you try and fill your cup before those times so that you're kind of ready and a bit more armoured with a bit more sort of strategy and a bit more so robustness. I think the second thing is to have some of those in the moment strategies. So when you're feeling very, very anxious, feeling very triggered, what can you do? And we talk about grounding skills are very helpful. So I think it's figuring out which of your senses are the strongest for you. So for me, smell and touch are my two strongest senses. So for me, putting on some hand cream and rubbing that around and smelling it is really helpful and really grounding for me as well. So I think looking at that. Breathing as well is the most regulating thing that we can do for our nervous system. So we talk about kind of rectangular breathing. So breathing out along the long side of the rectangle. So longer out breaths, shorter in breaths, and just spend a couple of minutes doing that. That can really regulate us. So if you're in the middle of a situation, you might say, I just need to go and have a minute. And modelling that to your child, I think, is really important. So go away and step away and do that. And then I think the third stage is around those more proactive strategies. So are you kind of exercising? I know it's hard to have time, isn't it? But it's remembering all of those things that keep us healthy in terms of our body and mind. And again, that can just really ensure that our cup is as kind of, as empty as it can be before these tricky moments start.
And that when we talk about exercise, it could be a walk around the block.
Yep,
we don't have to go and lift weights in the gym.
Go in the garden.
Yeah.
Also, just a few steps in the garden with a cup of tea. Yeah. Anything that will be helpful for you. But, you can do some workouts at home as well and the kids are in bed. I think it's finding ways to be able to do it, isn't it?
I found if I get up a bit earlier and I make sure the breakfast is out, the packed lunches are done, everything. And yes, perhaps they should be taking some more responsibility at their age. But for me, the easiest option is to have everything ready so that it's a sort of really scaffolded morning at home.
Yeah. And it has to work for you. I think that's because I said that about, when we're talking to children about regulating themselves, what's going to be in their toolbox for this will be very different to other children. So, mindfulness strategies and tools don't work for a lot of our autistic children because they just can't do this focus in and leave it, ignore all the peripheries. But I do think for parents as well, when you say about planning, that is absolutely crucial because planning and knowing, as I said earlier, knowing what's going to happen next, we all need that. And it reduces levels of anxiety. And as a parent, you know that if you're not kind of regulated, then there's no way you're going to be able to regulate your child. It's just not going to happen. So when you say I put all the stuff out in the morning for breakfast, I get up a bit earlier, I really advocate this. And it's not about not giving your children responsibility. It's about making that day start so that your child can then begin to take responsibility. And you need to give yourself permission to do it. I do a Sunday evening, Monday morning plan with every parent I work with. So Sunday evening, which is when it's riling up a bit, I actually get them to kind of think about, well, look, let's have a whole procedure here about what we talk about, how we talk about what ifs worries. What if this happens tomorrow, mummy? What if that happens? Well, let's problem solve that. Let's write down what you would do in that situation, where you would go for help so that we preempt the Monday morning worries. We also have a sleep routine, a bedtime routine, which is calming, does not involve the mobile phone, dare I say, that involves some nice music, a story when they're younger, but also some activity that's going to help them regulate. And they end up going to bed thinking about 3 positives from the day. So, Pookie Knightsmith does a lot on this 3 good things, so that you're actually going to sleep thinking something more positive than worrying about the next day. And then the same thing on the Monday morning, getting up half an hour earlier, making sure that that everything's laid out properly. The kids can lay the stuff out in on their Sunday night plan. They can have that for themselves visually on the wall in their bedroom. But I think then the next day it's about having that additional time, because I really maintain this. If you feel rushed and you feel out of control, then there's no way you're going to be regulated. No. And this is just going to backfire on you. So I think that's really, really important. Never apologise for being forward planning and taking control of things. I think that's so important.
And I have ADHD myself. So for me, being the person that's forward planning is quite challenging.
Yes. Yeah.
But you said something about modelling behaviours. And of course, if the children are seeing that I'm doing it, absolutely, this is how they're going to learn that that's how they can manage their lives independently.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I think there's something as well, Rosie, about, children don't need perfect parents. We can't be perfect. We really can't. So I think there's something about when it all goes wrong, which it will, various times. But I think it's then about being able to say sorry, isn't it? Yes. And thinking about what happened with your young person. And, actually, maybe I should have done that a little bit differently. I'm sorry that I didn't do that. Can we do that together differently next time? I think, again, that's really, absolutely, it's really good modelling as well.
And I think if you ever shout at your child and that you then, it's that happens. Yeah. And I think, forgive yourself, because you're just not, you can't be perfect and you can't expect your child to be either. And I think that's the thing. There is so much pressure around perfection and around looking good and being the best. And we don't need to hear those messages. What we need to do is be the best that we can at what we're doing,
and
at
be
being
what that
the
child
person
needs as well.
Absolutely.
You have 3 children; their needs are all completely different, and I think it's where you can, within the realms of what you are able to do, is to sort of tailor it to each child. Thriving outside the classroom. Small steps are key when it comes to getting the best education for your child. There's a distinct process to go through to achieve results, as we now discover. What tips and advice might you be able to give somebody about getting your child back into school?
I think the first thing that I would say is be realistic, totally realistic, because, with the analogy of, teaching a child to swim and just throwing them in, that really doesn't work. It does a huge amount of damage. So you're thinking about a very small stepped approach, so gradual desensitization really, and you are doing this in a really measured way. And I think it's about picking certain subjects or certain areas where that child is really quite confident in the home, and you think that they could actually adjust and make that transition back to school. So it might be 1 lesson a day, and that might go on for about 6 weeks or 12 weeks. It might go on for longer than that. They may never go back full time, and I think that's something to factor in. But there might be a way that they could do up to a half time. But as long as you're receiving a full-time education, then in my view, that's fine. But I think it is about being realistic. You cannot suddenly think that you're going to do it all in the one go. And I think playing to the child's strengths initially is probably quite wise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think individualised timetables can be really, really powerful. And for me, it isn't about the time in school. It's about using the time that we can in the best way. But I think school isn't for everybody. It really isn't. And I think there's so much more flexible options now. And I think children can often, for example, go to a college placement, at the age of 14. It's getting kind of earlier and earlier. And I think even the different pathways that children can follow and the different, curriculums as well are much more flexible now too. So I think it's finding the right thing for your child. And once you've found that, actually, it's hugely beneficial rather than trying to force them down this route that just might not be right for them.
And the sort of earlier education, they're having to learn everything, aren't they? And they're doing things like drama and music and all things that, perhaps they don't enjoy. They might do. And then you go to A-levels, if you do A-levels or a college course, and you get to choose what you do. And
Autonomy
I think,
again.
and I think that's why I'm trying not to worry too much about this stage, because so long as she meets her milestones and gets a rounded, education, as she gets older, she'll be able to pick more and more what she wants to do. And I think that gives them that control back.
Yeah, and she'll thrive. I mean, I worked with this one child in Brighton, couple of years ago, and she wasn't attending school at all. She now attends a specialist provision. There are 16 girls in this provision.
Oh, wow.
And she just flew to Canada with her younger brother to see the grandparents. And she's just done her GCSEs and she's done really, really well. And this is transformative. She's in the right context. And I know everyone can't access that context. And it's been a fight to get her this provision. It's a big fight. But actually, she's thriving. She's happy. She said to me, one of the most poignant things was, I don't feel like I'm the odd one out anymore. Everyone's like me and they understand me. And we all make fun of the fact that we're autistic. We love it. We think it's great because we know we've got this powerful personalities and we're so good at certain things. You know, she's kind of got this self-worth back that she didn't have before. What I would say as a caveat to all of this is that it's really difficult if you are a working class mother and you work in Sainsbury's or Tesco's around the corner from me, and I've had experience of this recently, and you are a single mum and, you know, all these other factors that come into play where you don't have the capacity to do this and you don't have the wherewithal to engage in that way.
And it's true as well that a dysregulated child can't access education anyway. So if they're dysregulated in school, they're not getting anywhere near as good a quality as education as they might get at home anyway.
And they won't achieve. They won't meet those milestones. They won't achieve in the same way. So I think parents... We had this conversation on the way in because one of the questions that you'd originally posed was around what do you say to parents when they're getting over anxious and they feel blamed by the school and they feel guilty? And I said, without being a psychologist, taking that hat off totally, I just say, oh, please stop. You don't need to go down that route. You know, this is not about blame. This is not about you being at fault or doing the wrong thing. This is about all of us working together to find what is going to be best for your child. And it might look very different to going to full-time school. And that's fine. If you're not fine in school, it's fine to be out of school with the right kind of programme and provision.
The balancing power of special interests. Next, we find out how to go about punctuating the days with things to make them more interesting and more focused. For anybody listening that's thinking, okay, but if I homeschool my child, all they're going to want to do is play Minecraft on the Xbox or go on their iPad, what do you say to them?
I would say that you can intersperse your day with moments of Minecraft, the Xbox, you know, anything that actually gives you that moment of flow, that experience of flow throughout the day. You think about what we do in order to keep ourselves well and regulated. So I might go to the gym first thing, I take a walk, I read a book for half an hour at lunchtime. I make sure that I punctuate my day with activities where I feel relaxed, I'm in the moment, I don't have to worry about anything. So, you know, maybe it's painting or listening to music, whatever it is, there's going to be little moments in the day that I indulge my special interests. And actually I then come back to the task in hand and I can focus better. You know, it's a bit like when people said, oh, working from home's not good, you know, and I think I do twice as much work from home because I'm really not distracted and I'm really focused. So I can do in 5 hours what I'd normally do in the office in 8 hours, much quickly, much more productively. And I think that, you know, it's not about, they're not going to be on their Xbox all day. That's not what happens with homeschooling. But they are going to punctuate the day with lovely activities. If you take them off horse riding at lunchtime, or you go for a walk together, or you want to do half an hour's run around or play football, that's absolutely fine. We need, as human beings, we need regular moments of flow. That's what actually keeps us balanced.
And I guess you could use it as a bit of a reward as well. You know, you've got this, I know that you don't really want to do this maths worksheet, but, you know, if you get this done, we'll go off to the park afterwards. So you're using a bit of a reward system as well.
Yeah. And children are good at those things as well, aren't they? And it gives them a sense of mastery and they enjoy it and it's that positive.
And there's a limited amount of time.
Absolutely. So I think it's really important.
Trauma and other influences behind EBSA. There are numerous reasons that a child might be unable to access education. Here are some of the underlying factors that can contribute to this challenge. So we've talked a little bit about the high level of percentage of neurodivergent children who are unable to access education. What other causes might be a factor in this? Is that, who would like to take that one?
Absolutely. I mean, we've probably both got lots of examples, haven't we, Tina? But I think I would say it's never down to one reason. Absolutely isn't. So it might be something home-based. So, for example, if there's perhaps marital, discord within the home, actually children might want to stay at home to check that everything's all right. Or if sometimes if there's a person in the family that's quite poorly as well. So there may be, for example, a cancer diagnosis. And again, children are very anxious about being anywhere but right next to that person at home. I think sometimes, obviously, there's individual aspects. So it might be neurodivergence. The young person might have experienced a significant trauma at school, for example, as well, which makes them want to go, back to the home environment and never go to school ever again. I think, a young person that I worked with, she'd experienced the death of a family pet, a really traumatic, situation as well. So I think we often think about neurodivergence, but also there's a lot of trauma involved often, isn't there?
I think there's one thing that I've come across frequently is when a parent has mental health difficulties themselves, and the child actually becomes reluctant to move out of the home because they're so worried about their parent and what they're going to do and what's going to happen. And they essentially have become a carer for the parent. And that's, again, it's a trauma, and they're holding that. So I think that's a real significant issue in my experience for some of the children.
And no wonder if they've got something really big going on at home, you can understand why they really wouldn't want to have to go back into that environment of school and put on their mask and pretend that everything is okay.
And also, if it's something around mental health, there's still such a stigma around it. When staff in a very well-meaning way are asking a pupil, well, what is it? What's going on at home? What's impacting on you? Has someone died or someone ill or something? Actually to come out with the fact that actually my mum's not well, she's on antidepressants, or she's behaving erratically, or she's not taking her medication and I'm frightened to leave her. It's a big ask for a child.
Very big.
To actually talk about that openly. And, unless you've got that trust with someone in the school context where that they're actually really supporting you, it's very, very difficult.
And that comes back to that having a named person, somebody that they trust, somebody they can go to, a safe room that they can go and talk. And I think you're right, because if you're asked in the middle of a class of 30 people what's going on at home, very unlikely to disclose, aren't you?
Yeah, but even on a one-to-one, there's a power dynamic that always goes on until you've really formed a nurturing, compassionate relationship with an adult who really understands you. You feel safe with them. You're not going to actually tell them what's really happening. You're going to tell them what you think they want to hear and what is manageable and what keeps you safe at a safe distance from them, not what keeps you safe. So I think that's important as well. It's vital to have that adult, someone who you can really talk to, who really keeps you safe, who holds you in that situation, really.
And actually, how do you make sure that if a child is removed from school and they are homeschooled, are there safeguarding protocols in place to make sure that the child is in a safe environment at home?
Yeah, I mean, in our schools, they absolutely have to do some, eyes-on checks on the children as well. So you will get the team, or a member of staff. I mean, we have family liaison officers or family liaison champions. Some of our schools are calling them as well, that support that family too, because I think often the family have had a lot of trauma around this as well. So building that trusting relationship is really important. But yeah, absolutely coming to the home if the child won't come to school, meeting them out for a coffee as well is another way of doing it. If they really don't want to be in school, what else can we do to kind of support the safeguarding of that young person, ensure that they are okay and the family situation is okay as well, and what additional support that they might need.
Thank you, both of you. I feel like I've learnt an enormous amount, and because it feels particularly relevant to what I'm going through at the moment, it's been hugely helpful, and I'm sure lots of other people will find it helpful too. Just before we finish, Tina, would you give me one bit of advice that you would like parents to take away from this episode?
In essence, I think parents should go away feeling that they're not on their own, that there's a huge amount of support out there. And please, please, please stop blaming yourselves or others. Work together with whoever can support your child and build those compassionate relationships. Because in the end, it's all about healing this stuff. It's all about ensuring that children can heal, that you can feel comfortable, you can feel happier, you can be more productive in whatever sphere, socially, academically. So I think listen to each other. Listen to yourselves and don't blame either the school or yourself. Work together to be solution-focused and find a way forward, because it is possible. There is always hope. There are so many success stories when people stop and listen compassionately to each other.
Thank you so much to Dr. Tina Ray and Dr. Leanne Johnson for sharing their insights and compassion on such a complex and important topic. I know so many parents listening will feel less alone and hopefully more empowered after hearing this conversation. If today's episode has resonated with you, please do check out the resources we've linked in the show notes, including Tina's book, the Not Fine in School Network, and practical guides on EBSA. You can also find more information and resources on our website at www.optionsautism.co.uk. And if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, follow us on socials, and share it with anyone who might need to listen. Until next time, take care of yourselves out there. I'll be back with you soon.